want to start with a question. Who within this space is currently building privacy-centric protocols or censorship-resistant tools? Okay, I see some friends there. Okay, cool, nice. So I have a bad news for you. You, for this activity, could become a target of one of the most advanced surveillance technologies that currently exists. My name is Joan, Arus, and I am the co-founder of Sentinel Alliance. Previously, I was CEO of Aragon Project, the DAO framework that helps secure over 40 billion in digital assets. And before that, I co-founded Bogdoni, which is a universally verifiable anonymous voting system. I have spent the last few years of my life in building decentralized governance protocols. And for that activity, me and my team, we became a threat to national security. I'm here today to explain what was the playbook that was used against us, why should you care, and what we're doing about it. In 2019, and for 2 years, me and my team were spied, hacked, and infiltrated with Pegasus and Candiru. For those who don't know these words, these are what the industry calls mercenary spyware software. This is more than a piece of software. It is a capability. It has the capability to turn your phone into a spy in your pocket. It can access to your private and encrypted messages, your photos, your documents, your passwords. It can even activate the microphone and camera and turn that phone into a bug in the room. And you may be thinking, what triggered all this? Like, what could possibly trigger all this surveillance? Well, it seems that for the Spanish intelligence agencies, what we were building was considered a national security, a threat to national security. We were not and we were deemed a threat to national security because the potential use of the tools we were building. So, not past actions, potential future use by third parties. And what's most striking is we were writing self-sovereign identity protocols, not even mixednets, voting protocols. These tools, the governments that use them, they argue that they use them to fight crime and terrorism. But we see how that is not the case. And why should you care? Because this represents an escalation of the Tornado Cash playbook. In that case, authorities required to have physical access to the device. They got the messages and they used that information to build up the case. With mercenary spyware, any government in the world can remotely target your device and get those conversations without even needing to arrest you. It also means that we go from a framework that prosecutes usage by third parties to a framework that makes developers liable for the potential misuse of those tools. And the stark reality is that open source developers are increasingly getting targeted. How many more developers do we need to see swatted, deported, prosecuted, or even jailed because of writing lines of code? Any of you who raise your hand, you could be next, if you have not been already a target. The theme of this Congress is, without privacy, there's no democracy. I fully agree with that statement, I think we all. But with your permission, I want to give it one spin more. With unchecked mercenary spyware, there is no privacy, but there's neither democracy. Because mercenary spyware breaks the fundamental pillars in which democracy is sustained. Rule of law, separation of powers, protection of fundamental rights, accountability of our institutions. All of those go out the window if the government can deploy these technologies unaccountable, without transparency, without proper oversight, without proper oversight. So, what is the technical threat? We are in a privacy conference right now. Mercenary spyware breaks completely the security model we've had for 2 or 3 decades now. You see, when they can get root access to your device, it doesn't matter how good the encryption is for your payments or for your documents or your messages. They live between you and the encryption. And once they get in, they can get everything. You know, keylog. They can keylog your password. They can get your credentials, your token access to cloud infrastructure, even see the private keys. If you see them on your phone, they can see them too. And what's worse is that, I don't know how many of you know about zero-click exploits. With this, they don't even require you to click on any link. They can get in your device. They just need your phone number or your iCloud account. They get in, they get out, and you never notice. It's really, really hard because this software doesn't leave a trace. In Android, it's very, very hard to detect. They can also leverage the vast amount of information they got on you to send you hyper-personalized messages and emails that make you click. And this is not restricted to phones. They can also target macOS, Windows, Android devices, so it's not only your phone. What is the scale of this issue? Of course, governments love this technology. The lack of accountability, combined with the extreme capabilities of this software, makes this the tool of choice for conducting surveillance operations. It is a VC-funded $12 billion industry. More than 74 governments around the world, including the vast majority of Latin American governments, deploy these technologies. And I'd like to stop here for a moment to remember 2 cases, because this is more than a privacy issue. Cecilio Pineda, Mexican journalist, he was gunned down in the street hours after he exposed alleged government corruption. It turns out his phone had been infected with Pegasus a few days earlier. You see a photo of Jamal Khashoggi entering the Saudi embassy in Turkey a few years ago. He never made it out. He got out actually in pieces in plastic bags. I'm showing you these examples to show you what the stakes are. When governments deploy these technologies unaccountable, without oversight, the stakes are not abstract. They're real. They're final. People end up getting killed and chopped up thanks to the intelligence they retrieve using these tools. So I spent the last few years of my life studying the playbook that they used against us. And we've seen this is not just one rogue intelligence agency. It's a repressive ecosystem that weaponizes the pillars of democracy against you. It all starts with the legislative, which creates intentionally ambiguous laws aimed to give the coverage to the executive to engage in surveillance operations. This is probably the most important slide I wanted you to see today. The redefinition of the terrorism offense. in most European countries, terrorism includes any action with the purpose to subvert the constitutional order or seriously destabilize the institutions or the economic social structures, including those committed with informatic systems. Who here is building something that could challenge legacy social structures? Who here is building network states, which is a word that amazes me a lot? See, building the capacity to opt out is a direct challenge to the monopolies that the nation states have had for the last 300 years. The executive. What's most striking is that these agencies engage in what I call a dual-track operation. They've got some operations covered with warrants, and there's another track that engages in illegal espionage. Citizen Lab uncovered 3 years ago 65 targets. The authorities acknowledge having spied with 18 of them, but the rest, as verified also by the Spanish police, use the same technological infrastructure, but no warrants for those. These are real examples of the messages that we received. I mean, they even impersonated their own agencies with our own fiscal numbers. They used all the information they had on us to send all these personalized messages, and in some of these cases, we did not even need to click on the link. It was a zero exploit. I hope you see how the risk surface, of developers is increasingly getting bigger and bigger. Then this intelligence is then laundered into reports that end up being used by the judiciary system to open new investigations and to prosecute you. In our case, we were investigated for alleged terrorism. 12 years in prison for building digital voting protocols. We were never able to access the cause. We never knew the details of the charges against us. And in the end, the judicial process was archived due to a procedural mistake committed by the judge. This went on for 2 years, which leads me to the press. We found all about this through the press. 1 week after the Citizen Lab report showed all these surveillance operations, 1 week after, those reports, those intelligence reports, leaked to the press. And all of a sudden, our faces, this is Jordi Bailina in prime time on TV having to explain why he was not a terrorist. This went on for 2 years. The press, which should act as a system of balances and checks, instead was acting as the attack dog of those 3 pillars. You see the loop I told you? In the end, you are the target. And where does that leave the separation of powers? The rule of law. The right to have a fair trial, privacy, family life, private family life, all gone. This is why we created Sentinel Alliance. We had 2 options: do nothing or act and try to change stuff. We have 3 goals, three main goals. First, actively defend victims. Second, raise global awareness across key stakeholders. And 3, drive systemic change to prevent new abuses. We're trying to increase the costs, both economical, political, and reputational, of deploying mercenary spyware against civil society. That's why we went on the offense. We believe the best defense for developers is actually going on the offense. And we have filed the largest criminal complaint against 2 mercenary spyware companies and 2 state agencies. It is the largest in the world. We're going after them for, I don't know the charges in revelation of secrets, informatic secrets, and illegal access to computer systems, with the aggravating factor of them being public officials. This has up to 6 years of jail time. We seek to have an impact in 3 tiers. First of all, the victims, obviously themselves. We want to clear their names and achieve the digital and financial restitution. For the developers and the open source community, we want to build up jurisprudence to break the doctrine that allow them to prosecute developers based on the potential use of the tools they use. And third, for civil society. Without holding state agencies accountable, there's no democracy. But this is a hard path. We're up against national intelligence agencies. We have virtual infinite amount of funds. And on the other hand, the mercenary spyware industry, which is well-funded, and it's always shape-shifting. That's why we're creating the Developer Legal Defense Fund. We're seeking to seed it with $1 million. And this should allow us, first of all, to see the current prosecution through until the end, which we expect it's going to take between 5 to 7 years, as our lawyers tell us. Second, detect and defend more developers, more victims, which we are sure exist out there. And 3, increase awareness across key stakeholders, because legal action without increased awareness on policymakers is not effective. If you are building privacy-preserving technologies or censorship-resistant tools, you are part of a tradition that seeks to expand human freedom. But that also means you are at the forefront of a battle between freedom and surveillance, between privacy and control. The moment the tools you are building are used in a high-stake use case, this playbook will be aimed at you. Remember the definition of terrorism, as Fede, by the way, the Ethereum developer, had the unfortunate luck to discover while traveling in Turkey a few weeks ago. We should not choose between our work and our safety. That is why we are building these tools, this legal defense, because we want to build a future in which our children, our family, our fellow citizens are protected from state abuse. How can you help? Share this story across your communities. This is highly unknown. Like, everyone knows about the Tornado Cash case. It was highly, highly public. But this is relatively unknown. Share this story across your communities. If you have the means, or the organization you work for have the means, donate to the funds. Every dollar donated is an investment in our collective security. And of course, if this message resonates with you, I think that's it. Yeah, you can always reach out to me via Signal, or find me at DevCon. I'll be there all week. So thank you very much.